Okay, it's Sunday night. That means it's time for Dean Legge and his weekly chat. And I shouldn't really talk in the third person. My name's Dean Legge. I've covered Georgia for 17 years. If you're one of the thousands of people that watch Dog Post each week, welcome. I forgot my microphone again. I was going to wear that this week, but we'll just get going as usual. Okay, Georgia kind of routine South Carolina. They win 24-10. They are still the number one team in the college football playoff rankings. They're number 2 team for the Associated Press and the coaches. They have a really, really big game with Auburn this Saturday, and this really is the biggest game of the season. Needless to say, this is an important game. This basically is your margin for error in any way. And Georgia, I didn't know what would happen with this line kind of right at the beginning. And a line is what bettors think the game will be, who they think will win and who they think will lose. Georgia's a 2.5-point favorite right now. I think that could get up to 4, but it should probably sneak up to 3 sometime in the next sort of 24 hours. We'll see how that goes. The initial money went pretty heavy to Georgia. So I mean, I think Georgia's better than Auburn is. I think this is going to be a fourth quarter game. I think that this will come down to the final possession of the game, no matter who has the ball at the end. Someone's going to have to, either go down and win the game, and someone's going to have to stop the other team. Auburn is scoring 37 points a game, which is the same amount Georgia is. They are allowing 17 points a game. Georgia's allowing 12. Auburn's going for 237 yards rushing, 229 yards passing. There's a lot of balance there for Auburn. And then against the run defense for Auburn is something about like what Notre Dame and Mississippi State was like, and to some degree South Carolina. So Auburn's allowing 129 yards a game. 126 yards a game. Carolina's allowing 149. Mississippi State's allowing 124, and Notre Dame's allowing 130. So we'll just see how that goes. That'll be an important thing. I mean, Auburn's they're only allowing 181 yards passing game. I don't know that that's a huge issue, and their turnover margin's about even. It's a little bit to the positive. So this will be a huge test for the Dogs. They're only allowing 89 yards a game rushing. That's the second best in the conference behind Alabama. And Alabama's numbers will go up here at the end of the season playing Mississippi State and Auburn. So their average will go higher. Georgia should too. But the big thing for Georgia is, can they execute when they need to? I mean, Jake Fromm played his best game of the season on Saturday. So it's important to build on that. And naturally, playing as a true freshman, his worst performances have come on the road. So against Notre Dame, Tennessee, to some degree against Florida, where it wasn't his worst performance. He had bonehead moments, but he didn't really have to do much in those throwing the ball against Tennessee or against the Gators. So this might be the one game, we're this far into it. And lately, Jake has been more productive, which is really good for Georgia, because they, this throwing it 7 times is not going to work in these big games. So Georgia went for 196 passing yards. The game before they had 100. Against Missouri, they threw it a fair amount. Went for 300 and, is this right? It's got to be. Yeah, 326 yards. That was a very productive day, obviously, for Jake Fromm. I think he threw it 26 times. So that was his. But I still think he played better in this game than he did at any time during the season. Against Tennessee, I remember off the top of my head, he hardly threw it at all. There it is. I'm skipping Vanderbilt. Yeah, against Tennessee, 15 attempts, an interception. Just they weren't asking him to do much hardly at all. 12 attempts against Mississippi State. Against Samford, I think he threw it 13 times. And against Notre Dame, he threw it 29. Notre Dame's actually one of the better defenses. Georgia, Mississippi State and Notre Dame are two of the best defenses Georgia's gone up against. And whereas they did not score a pile of points in both of those games, their defense got them where they needed to go. And that really is the key to this game. I mean, this is all about, is Georgia's defense going to stop Auburn, considering how good or how much of an upgrade versus last year at quarterback Auburn's got. Sean White there was nothing to be concerned about. With Stidham, I mean, they're throwing the ball for almost 250 yards, 230 a game. So they're chunking it around a little bit. It's not like Missouri. I mean, Missouri had 315, but this is the second best pass team Georgia will see all season. Missouri had 315 yards a game, and then Auburn's at 229. So about 100 fewer, but still a significant challenge. I mean, it's basically in the ballpark of what South Carolina has been doing, but South Carolina's not running the ball at all. So, and the other thing is for Auburn, I think the challenge for Auburn is against big physical teams, they've not done great. I mean, they certainly pounded Mississippi State, if you want to call them as physical. Everybody talks about Mississippi State being very physical, and they are. But I'm talking about the truly physical teams on their schedule, and that'd be LSU and Clemson. Both really the better defenses, the more physical defenses in the South. And Georgia's probably better defensively than both of them. Now, the biggest thing that happened against Carolina over the weekend, and this is how Georgia should have covered the line, but they did not. They just didn't get off on third down. I mean, you've got to end the game. You've got to end drives. That was the biggest thing to me, is that Georgia, they've got to get off the field on third downs, and that didn't really happen enough. I mean, it happened, but Carolina was I'm seeing here now, maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed. It was 4 of 12, but it seemed like the 4 times that they converted were really on important moments. So not what you're wanting. Now, Georgia's continued. This is the first time they did not score in the red zone. They were 4 or 5, obviously, with a Terry Godwin fumble. Or was that me, Cole? I can't remember. Right on top of the end zone. So that was the first time that didn't happen. You don't want any failures in the red zone this week, because points are going to be at a premium. This is going to be something like, if Auburn scores 30 points, Georgia's in some serious trouble. I don't think they will, but you get my point. This cannot be a track meet. In 2013, with Aaron Murray, you could run up and down the field. You could do that sort of stuff. That's not what this is. In 2014, with Hudson Mason at quarterback, Georgia controlled that game a lot. So that's not what that's what this is going to be. So this is going to be a real fight. And the last time Georgia was there, both these teams were just not good. 2015 Auburn, very mediocre. Georgia 10-3, but pretty mediocre as well. There's some recruiting questions on here. You need to go to dawgpost.com, dawgpost.com. Is Cade Mays a real possibility? I don't know that Georgia is leading there, but I think they have their chance. So that's a good question. Jake Bentley went 21 for 35, 227. I think if that's the line for Stidham this weekend, you'd probably be okay with that. You can't have him throwing for 300 yards, though. that's just not going to work. But you get the return of Natrez Patrick this week. You get you get the mojo of Georgia. Georgia has played pretty well at Jordan-Hare lately. 15 they won, 13 obviously a miracle for Auburn, 12 they won, 10 they lost, 8 they won, 6 they won. So they've had a fair amount of success, generally in speaking, at Auburn. Of course, both teams have had success at the other place. Someone's asking if Natrez Patrick has been practicing. He's definitely been practicing. I'm not sure if he's going to start, though, because Reggie Carter has really played pretty well. The guys who have, generally speaking, filled in for him, Jawan Taylor, Reggie, Monty Rice, they have played pretty well. So I mean, Monty Rice is looking like the steal of the class. Auburn hasn't won at Georgia since 2005. That's got to be right. But before that, obviously, you know, I'm talking globally. I think Auburn still may have a winning record at Georgia. Is that right? If not, it's very close. There was a time when these two, you know, where there was a time in the 90s where the teams just kept going back and forth, winning at the other people's place. Auburn is 16-11 against Georgia at Jordan-Hare. They are, no, excuse me, Georgia's 16-11, 16-11-2 at Jordan-Hare. They are 13-17 in Athens. So that's a strange thing about this rivalry, and this is a legitimate rivalry. This isn't like Tennessee or South Carolina for Georgia. This is a legitimate rivalry. The two have really had a lot of success on the other person's field. The other thing is, you know, Georgia finally has the edge in this series. They're up 57-55. If you could figure out how to get a 3-game lead, that would be a big deal. And Georgia's won 8 of the last 10, and I think it's actually more than that. They've had a lot of success since 2002. They've only lost 4 times to Auburn, so that's quite a bit of wins for Georgia. I don't know what some of these things mean. Kyle Davis is not on. Kyle Davis, from what I don't have a computer in front of me. Kyle Davis is not on Auburn's team anymore, is he? Didn't he get kicked out of there? And people say, glad it's not a night game, but I can assure you it's 3:30. We've already done daylight savings. This is basically a night game. I mean, this game is going to be played at night for the most part. So, you know, after about 4:30 right there in Columbus area, you know, it's going to be dark. Someone was asking about CBS picking up Kentucky at 3:30. I'm fairly certain they will pick up Georgia, Kentucky for a lot of different reasons. Mainly because there's just not a lot of great games that week, and Georgia now is in the SEC championship game, and they're going to want to promote Georgia as much as possible. I mean, you had them playing the Gators this week against South Carolina, this coming week against Auburn, and then probably against Kentucky as well. And then, you know, Georgia will take a breather in the form of Georgia Tech before going to Atlanta to play either Alabama, Mississippi State, or Auburn. The CBS backup crew is atrocious. I've not heard them yet. But they're backups for a reason, I guess. Someone's asking me about a pick for the game. I like Georgia, but if you want to lose sleep this week, I completely get it. So I think this is a nerve-wracking game for a lot of people. This game will be really, I think this is the game that determines that Georgia gets into the playoff. I don't think they will lose to Tech or Kentucky. I think they're too good. I think the other two teams will be running out of steam. If you lose this game, it's not the end of the world. But if you lose this game, you're probably going to have to beat Alabama twice to win the national championship. And that is going to be tough to do for anybody. I mean, I'm not sure if, you know, any team could beat any team twice in 2 of 3 games. So it's going to be tough. This is really the big game of the season. You know, you really, I know that Kirby and them will have them completely zoned in and ready to play. But this will be a challenging game for sure. And it's so funny. I can't win with the comments. If I'm not being optimistic enough, I get criticized. If I'm being too critical, I say the sky is falling. Look, it's just what it is. They're barely a field goal favorite. They're a favorite on the road. That means for sure you're the better team, no doubt about it. But they're going to have to go out and prove it. And you know, they're going to have to stop Auburn's run game. They're going to have to limit them to like 150 yards. If you can do that, I don't know. Daryl from Columbus, I think, does a lot of the Feinbaum stuff. I don't know much about those guys. Thoughts on the secondary? Fall to number 2 this week. I do not think that Georgia will fall. I do not think that they will fall unless they lose. Because there's nothing, like everything Alabama does from here on out will be compared to what Georgia has already done. And that's strange. Let's be honest. That's a new phenomenon in college football. Most people, Bama has been the leader and has been getting chased. And this season, partly because of the schedule, but mainly because of the Notre Dame win, Georgia has a big win on its, resume. And they played Mississippi State. They played Tennessee. They played Vanderbilt. And now they will play Auburn. They played all of them, with the exception of Vanderbilt, before Bama has played them. So there's been a lot of Georgia puts something up, then it's Bama's turn. I'm trying to remember what the Alabama-Tennessee score was. It was about as bad as Georgia, and Georgia's was not as bad against Vanderbilt. And I think we will see what happens with Mississippi State and Alabama. Alabama should win that game kind of going away. You'd imagine late in the third they will start pushing away. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about with the skies falling stuff. Richt against Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame will win that game. Mark, Thomas, Todd, that whole staff down there, people I don't know, Stacy, they've done a really good job. And I think that if they win this week, you have to say that, and now they're 4-point underdogs at home for the second week in a row. That's not common. And Miami's earned it. They have played a relatively challenging schedule. Florida State's not good. Virginia Tech has got 3 losses now, or 2. What is it? 2 losses. I think Notre Dame goes down there and handles Miami. I think that they will be pretty good. Let's see. Talking about Wisconsin, I think all you need to do is listen to the national people. Particularly pay attention to what ESPN is saying about the playoff. They are figuring out how to get Alabama and Georgia into the playoff. The two of them just have got to get to Atlanta undefeated. If Notre Dame loses, that's going to be Notre Dame's problem. It will not be, I don't think, Georgia and Alabama's problem. You've still got Wisconsin, Miami, Clemson, Oklahoma kind of hanging out there. Wisconsin needs some help. They need Clemson to lose, but they needed Clemson to lose to NC State, and that didn't happen. Wisconsin needed Ohio State and Penn State, which is apparently James Franklin. I just don't even know where to start with that guy. But they've got 2 losses in a row. They're done. Ohio State's done. But Ohio State will probably still win that division unless, it could be Michigan State, could be Ohio State. What happens if Michigan State wins the Big Ten? And that's a decent possibility of that happening. It's a pretty good possibility of it happening if they win this week against Ohio State. So right now you're looking at either an undefeated Big Ten champion or a 1 loss or a 2. And I'm just not sure if they will get into the playoff. Clemson now, though, has pivoted to, the ACC champion is going to get in, whether they have 1 loss or they're undefeated. Obviously, it's either going to be Miami or Clemson. I think Clemson technically can still not win their side, and Miami maybe can technically still not win their side, from what I understand. I don't know the ACC off the top of my head, but it's probably going to be those 2. And the winner of that game, I just don't see how they don't get in. That's not a super challenging conference, but, whatever. Clemson does have to deal with South Carolina and Columbia. They should win that game. I'm just saying they have not been great. They've not been stomping people this year. There was a time last year when they were absolutely killing people. They've been very, they've won. Well, the Syracuse game sticks out. That's a bad loss. Let's see. Wisconsin already lost when they made their schedule. Well, yeah, I mean, like stuff like, then you got UW out west too, with one loss. But I mean, it looks to me like if Notre Dame and the two SEC schools, only lose one game between the three of them the rest of the way, and it's to the other, then they're going to get in. And there's a lot of different reasons why. Mainly because they're the three best teams, but also because they draw huge television numbers. I mean, between the three, it goes Notre Dame, now it goes Alabama, it goes Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, but globally it really used to go Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia. So this would be a great, they would love this matchup, the TV people, all of them. Georgia's in good shape even with a loss to Auburn. Normally, I would say you'd be okay, but about saying that, I don't think that that's necessarily true. I mean, Georgia can't lose this game and feel really great about their playoff odds, because then you will go into the SEC championship game as the underdog. You don't want to be the underdog. Don't listen to people who say shit like that. That's stupid. You want to be the favorite because that means you're the better team. So, you need to handle business this week, period. And if you handle business this week, y'all can take it easy through, you can get your stress level up a little bit for the Tech game. But other than that, you got 2 games left. One's at home against Kentucky. They're not going to lose some of these games. They're not going to lose to Kentucky. I see a lot of discussion about Big 12. Baker Mayfield, it's going to be challenged. The only thing, too, is that Oklahoma, I do wonder if you have 2 one-loss teams in the ACC championship game, and Miami is the team that wins it, and they go 12-1. They beat Clemson. Does Oklahoma jump them? I don't know. I mean, because that Ohio State win doesn't look as good now, obviously, now that Iowa, which may as well be North Dakota, boat raced them. That is just not even bothering showing up for a game. You can't get your ass whipped like that. It just cannot happen. They got fake field goals and all this stuff. I mean, I expect a little bit more from Ohio State. This is just not very good. How hard is it going to be to find SEC championship games? It's going to be tough. Last time Georgia and Auburn were real contenders going into this game. Well, last year, I mean, Auburn was a 1-loss team, if I'm not mistaken. Or were they a 2-loss team? They were the number 8 team in the country, whatever they were. And they were completely in the playoff mix because all they had to do was beat Georgia, the gimme game, beat Alabama, and win the SEC championship. Whatever. Someone talking about turnovers. Both teams are about the same. I mean, Georgia's a .33 turnover margin in their favor. Auburn with .11. So it's not great. But, the most advantageous 2 teams on this schedule, statistically with turnover margins, are Notre Dame and Alabama. I mean, Notre Dame's getting 1.33 a game. Alabama 1.22. So Georgia's only plus .33. Auburn plus .11. So nothing great there. I mean, like Missouri is -1 a game. The Gators are minus .63. Tech is minus .25. So not a lot right there to really. I mean, the things that jump out to me are how good is your run defense, all right? So there's only 2 teams on my board, and I keep a board that only shows the legitimate teams Georgia plays. So no Appalachian States. Georgia and Bama are the only 2 who are under 100. And kind of my frame of reference is if you're allowing 130 yards against the run, that means Georgia's going to go for about 200 on you. So Auburn is allowing 126. So Georgia, in theory, should go for about 200. If you're allowing more than 120, you're in real trouble. And that's what happened with the Gators, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Missouri. I mean, Georgia just ran all over them. So, and in passing defense, those numbers can be so skewed. Like Georgia's allowing 165 right now. Tennessee's allowing 150. Well, that's partly because they played Tech and Georgia, and all those teams did was run. So at this point, 20% of your schedule has hardly any pass game in it. So someone was asking about the SEC championship losing. The loser of the SEC championship game. They would almost certainly be the 3 or the 2. Probably the 3. Doesn't matter. Just the jersey color. The loser of the SEC championship game, as it stands right now, okay, the loser of the SEC championship game will go to the Rose Bowl. I mean, if Alabama and Georgia arrive in Atlanta undefeated as the number 1 and 2 team in the country, first of all, it's going to be about 15 million viewers for that game, one of the biggest games. That would be the largest TV audience of the football season. But then on top of that, the winner would be 100% guaranteed. They would be the number 1 seed. They are going to the Sugar Bowl. The loser is not going to get set up as the 4, so you have a rematch. So you could have a situation where the loser drops out completely. Possible. Doesn't feel like it's going to happen right now. You could also have a situation where the loser only drops to the 2. But if you're the 2 or the 3, all that matters there is the location doesn't change of the game. It's the Rose Bowl. And the only thing changes is you'd be in road whites. So that's really it. Will the Auburn passing game give Georgia trouble? I am sure it will challenge Georgia for sure. No doubt. Notre Dame's only given up 20 points once this year. Well, they've done it twice, right? Over 20 points. So over 20 points, I think is only Wake Forest. 20 points, was 2. Fromm has below average arm strength. Otis Reese, greater or less than 50%. I'd say greater to me. Fromm does not have what you would call an elite arm. Okay, so he's not got Zach or Jacob or Matthew or Cam Newton or Michael Vick or whatever arm strength. So you understand that, etc., and you just ask him to do what he can do. Yes, Fromm is accurate, but he also is inaccurate at times, and he makes mistakes. The one throw out, which could have been a pick 6, was thrown low enough that it did not turn that way. So, but he's really played this past game was his best game. He definitely played very well. The throw to Wims, I guess, I can't remember who scored the touchdown with the 1 foot. I guess it was Wims. That was basically, I don't know how you throw that ball a lot better than that. That was a great catch, frankly. I wish he could have completed that ball on the scramble into the end zone, but that didn't happen. That would have ended that game right there. But he's played well. He played well this game, but he's been like this, and he just has got to have a solid game. He's got to have something close to what he did against Notre Dame without the sort of silly stuff, the interceptions, the wacky throws, and the fumble. If he doesn't do that, Georgia's going to win. Well, but, here's the thing about talking about Jake Fromm. He is what is it called, Rorschach test or whatever? Some people just love him and they don't care, and that's all there is to it. They can't see any mistake that he makes. They're not on the sideline. They don't hear the coaches screaming at him. And that was he definitely got screamed at a lot during that Florida game at the end. He's not perfect, and he's got to grow, and that's all there is to it. Right now, the biggest thing that he can do is turn around and give the ball to Nick and Sony. They have been special players. I love Zamir White. I think he's going to be exceptional, but it's hard to say that he will be better than the production Georgia's gotten from Sony and Nick. I mean, last night, Nick with 20 carries for 102 yards. He had a 27-yarder. Georgia didn't bust a long one against Carolina. That was the one thing that was interesting. Then Sony, 16 for 81. 13-yard was his long. Swift never got loose completely. He had 5 for 22. Harrion had 2 for 18. Receiving. So there were not any huge plays. I mean, you had a 27-yard run, 13-yard run, 14, 8-yard run, a 22-yard reception, 20-yard reception, 17, and 12. And that's not a huge, day in terms of explosion. Auburn, you would think, would have a few explosive plays against Georgia. This was the first game that I can kind of remember off the top of my head where Georgia didn't just gash somebody. I really think South Carolina played pretty well. I mean, I know South Carolina pretty well. I know Clemson pretty well. South Carolina played pretty well against Georgia. I don't know if they played as well as they could play, but Will and them had their they had their game plan. They did a very good job of, fighting. And that's basically going to be what, they're going to be from here on out. I mean, they're just going to kind of try to fight you, etc. And then that's Tech has been good at that too lately with Paul Johnson. We'll see how much fight Tech has at the end of the season. I think it's going to be a tough end of the season for Tech. But we'll see. I mean, that loss to Virginia, that's brutal. Mecole Hardman, he is actually playing a lot better. He's catching the ball. This is still a team that's relatively young in a lot of places. I don't know. South Carolina would be scary if Deebo Samuel wasn't hurt. Yeah, but I mean, injuries happen. You can't, Todd Gurley, Aaron Murray, Nick Chubb. It goes on forever. Last time a backup quarterback took his team to a 9-0 start. I don't know the answer to that. Isaac Nada came back from the dead. Well, they don't throw the ball. I mean, they throw the ball about every other game, and then that's really it. Mike Bubba with back-to-back losses to Air Force and Wyoming. Yeah, those are both rivalry games too. The Air Force loss was the one that was not so good for them up there. But they're hardly doing bad out there. Yeah, Parrish got beat on the only touchdown for Carolina, etc. Why does Clemson get a pass because their quarterback was hurt against Syracuse? I don't think they do, and I think that would be my one worry if I were Clemson. I mean, Clemson's still got 2 games they can lose. I mean, I would say Georgia's got 2.5 games they can lose with Auburn, Alabama, and then the combination of Tech and Kentucky. With Clemson, there's I'm not saying there's no way. We're talking about Dabo Swinney's coaching a team, so they can lose to a lot of people. All right, I don't see them losing to Florida State, but they've still got to deal with South Carolina. In Columbia, they should win that game, and then they've got the ACC championship game, which I'm not sure they've played well in lately. I mean, these last 2 years, they've just not played very well. Did you have a good vantage point of the South Carolina touchdown? No. I was across the field on the Georgia bench. Let's see. I don't know I'm not sure what one of those comments was. I'm not going to talk about players transferring. It's not, I think the lesson should be learned that everyone thought some players would transfer this year and they didn't, so if y'all want to speculate, that's up to you. I'm not going to, I'm a reporter, so, y'all, obviously I talk with a lot of different people. If I'm saying that something is probable or it could happen or whatever, that's not really something that is, then y'all will go run with it and say, he said that this is going to happen, or this could happen or whatever. So I'm not going to get into that ballpark. Will Georgia lose any coaches? They're going to at some point. Which coach went to, you talking about Brian McClendon? Why do people want players to transfer? Biggest weakness on next year's team? Probably, you would think, they're going to have to develop some guys in the secondary. That's an older group in the secondary. Dominique, Malcolm. So that's 2 of the 4. I'm not sure. Defensive line, yeah, I mean, but they've got guys coming in there. We'll just see what happens. There's not like there's just gaping hole. I mean, anywhere. So they've done a good job of recruiting, really. What do you think about Mark Richt facing Georgia in a playoff game? I think Miami would have a hard time beating Georgia. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but Miami would have to play really well. I don't know. Linebackers. No, I think they're going to be okay at linebacker. They're not going to have premium guys like Lorenzo, Davin. But in the middle, Roquan will leave, but Natrez comes back, Monty Rice, Jawan Taylor. You're going to be okay. On the outsides, yes, you will not have. I mean, 3 of the 4 players, really 2.5 for sure, will be our premier players, I would say. But yes, Terry Godwin's coming back. I don't know why Terry Godwin would leave. He's not done anything that's been so exceptional that he would leave. But I've lost my train of thought there. You've got DeAndre Walker, who's high energy guy. And he's a smaller guy. Lorenzo's not a big giant guy either. I mean, Davin is a more svelte guy. So you got some pass rushers in theory with Robert Beal, but definitely with DeAndre. And then, Walter Grant. So you've got some guys. It's not like they're devoid of them. And you're seeing those guys coming through 12 months later, 18 months after Kirby's there. Has it been 18 months? Is that right? 15? So about 18 months, yeah. So this is Lorenzo 18 months after Kirby. So then you're going to have, Walter Grant 18 months afterward. So there's plenty of development that can still go on with these younger players. I mean, Walter Grant looks good. I mean, DeAndre Walker is very good. Lorenzo didn't play like this 2 years ago. So you're not losing a 4-year guy that played unbelievable. He played really well, I think, as a freshman. He sort of regressed / disappeared. He's not disappeared anymore. Landers is killing it on the scout team. That's hard to know. That's hard to, project and know for sure what's going on in the scout. I mean, people said that about Jacob Park, and he couldn't do anything after a while. They need a more. This week they will get a chance to get a pass rush. The problem is you're playing on the road, so noise and stuff. It's not going to be in your favor. So that's kind of an issue. When Kentucky comes down, you could have a chance to really rush the passer again. Will 2018 backfield be the most talented of all time at Georgia? No, because it's going to be almost impossible to beat out the 2014 with Todd, Nick, Sony, and Keith Marshall. That's going to be nearly impossible. Saylor, Mays, and Hill, I can't imagine that they're not leading for Saylor. Hill, it seems like. Mays, I'm not sure. He's just decommitted from Tennessee. Kirby said someone was killing it. Well, I missed that. Well, then maybe he should be playing in the games. I mean, shit. Kirby's telling y'all sometimes what he wants you to hear. He's not always telling you what is reality, but most of the time he is telling you what is reality. I tell you what, he's been a curious cat after some of these games, no question. Well, and he was a late guy, Landers, coming into this class. He was, Cade Mays is not decommitted, but Matt DeBerry, if you watch all of our videos on Dog Post, was saying he thinks that he probably will decommit from Tennessee. Tell us something you know about the program that we don't. Well, I think you probably want to go to Dog Post every Wednesday for what we are hearing. That's kind of the point of it. DAWGPOST.com. I mean, 1,700 people are watching these videos here alone. There's something like 10,000 on YouTube. So y'all are watching, and you need to go over to Dog Post. You're a member. I appreciate it. You are one of many, and we can't do it. I can't pay for the air conditioning that's not working without you. Let's go. Special year for the Dogs. Tyson Campbell. Now, I don't know that name. Help me out there. Is that a kid? Clap on, I wish. No, I don't wish. I have children. My son claps all the time. That'd be a problem. I have insider knowledge on 2 elite linemen. I think most people can kind of guess who you think those are. Well, you know, you're talking about Neyland Stadium and the it's okay to drunk post. That's not unique to you for sure. Neyland Stadium definitely pumps music in. If you're asking why in a certain 2019 Grayson Ram, I know who you're talking about there. In fact, there could be a couple of them from Grayson. You know, structurally, Georgia doesn't have a roof. Tennessee does in certain sections. So that's part of the reason why it's so loud. And then the speakers are just everywhere at Neyland. I mean, it's crazy. And they just shoot them up into the stands, and it seems to, like, go back in. It's very loud there. Georgia's not loud, y'all. It's not very loud. I'm just telling you the truth. It's not a super loud place to play. It's intimidating, but it's not super loud. Talking about Nolan Smith commitment, right now, he will. The way I see it, he's still going to sign with Georgia, but he's the best player in the country in theory, so it's not just going to be some easy thing. Where does Georgia play some of the music on game day? Jordan-Hare can get loud. It's very loud there, I would say. And I don't think they're going to close the end zone at Georgia anytime soon. Talking about the kid at the private school in Florida, Nolan Smith, going to Alabama. Well, he could go visit there, but you know, I don't know if he'll sign there. I'd say probably Georgia still for now. Pick one, Nada or Warner. I would go with Nada right now, but Charlie Warner was ripping heads off out there. I don't know if y'all see everything. See, I'm on the field for every game, and like that block from Sony and someone, whoever it was, that allowed for, I don't think they scored, but that block was Sony and somebody else. When that linebacker came in, I mean, that linebacker got blown up bad. The flag, was that the hold? I don't think that was the hold. I can't remember. Well, Georgia uses tight ends more in the passing game. If they pass it more than 10 times a game, I'm sure they will figure out how to hit the tight ends. I can't remember the flag. I mean, I know Muschamp was furious. The chop block on Warner. It was going towards the open end zone. That's all I remember. I don't know. So see, some things I can see very well because I'm on the field, and then some things I cannot see well because I'm on the field. So stuff like that, sometimes it's tough. So I have to turn around and look at the replay. If I don't see the replay in time, I can't see it. Look, the big thing was for me with Georgia, I don't think there were a couple of penalties. There weren't a ton. Yeah, 5 for 55 yards. South Carolina only had 2. They're one of the least penalized teams in the country. They're in the top 5 of least penalized in the country. So, and I don't know what Auburn is off the top of my head, but really is a critical game. Georgia and Auburn. This is what it is. You know, you either win these games or you don't. You win it, you're probably in the playoff. You lose it, you got to beat Alabama to get into the playoff. And it's just what it is. And, you know, Georgia needs to win this game. That's all there is to it. The onside kick, I didn't like it at the time. I got to say that. But looking back, that was one of the few things I did go back and look. It was there. I mean, it was there. And South Carolina probably needs to clean that up. But it was there. I'm not sure that was the greatest. I mean, like, for me, as I explained last night, you know, if you're the better team, you don't have to necessarily do that stuff. I thought that was sort of overcoaching. But, you know, Kirby and them are going to say, hey, look, we're the aggressor. We're going to do stuff. Now everybody's worried about an onside kick from here on out the rest of the year. I didn't like it. But I don't have, you know, none of us have to like everything. I always want Nick to run the ball more too, but it's hard to complain. You know, it's hard to complain about everything. I mean, things have gone pretty well. Jake Fromm, this is his best game. You know, Nick, 100-yard run. They're the #1 team in the country. Their recruiting class is in the top 5. Their 2019 is the #2 class in the country. The momentum building, they just won the division. They very well could win the conference and national championship. There's always things that you can improve on as a team. There's always things that, you know, Georgia people should want more of. There's no reason that this program can't win 3 national championships in the next 10 years. There's no reason. So that should be the goal, is multiple national championships over a decade. But in order to do that, you got to win games like this one against Auburn. They're about a 3-point favorite. They should win the game. You know, I'll be back on Tuesday night. We're going to do it probably live at about 7 o'clock. If I'm not here at 7, I'll be there soon thereafter. So join me then. Dean Legge Dog Post, DAWGPOST.com. Go check me out. You can watch this replay. And Fletcher and I should have the roundtable tomorrow night, in theory. Fletcher's busy with things. But y'all, I appreciate you. Go to dogpost.com right now.